Hi guys, Oliver here from Spitfire Audio with a quick tip of how to create Silky Atmos strings. I'm going to show you this based on my demo I've written for the solo strings cello legato. I'm using a very simple kind of chord progression, but the trick I'm using is kind of to layer different libraries and different timbres of the kind of certain different instruments. So I've chosen to kind of make it really lush and wide and kind of silky sound. And I started by using the Hans Zimmer strings cello super flautando, which sounds absolutely amazing. And I'm using the three ambient and outrigger mics. So your mic choice is going to be really important as well. So for most of the mic choices, I don't want to use the close mic. So I want to kind of make it as smooth as possible, so don't have any kind of raspiness up front. So I think a good amount of reverb, of course, is important. So the built-in reverb I've got around here, maybe 15%, but let's just see how it sounds if we turn it up a little bit. Sounds quite nice actually, so maybe I kind of leave it a little bit up. And then I'm using two external reverbs for most of these kind of paddy strings. So bus number 1, huge amount, sending this to a UAD Lexicon large hole B, fairly long actually here, 4.2 reverb time on the mids and the bass slightly lower. And then my second reverb is also a UAD Lexicon, but it's a plate and a slightly shorter reverb. And sometimes on the plates I take off a little bit of the high end, but in this case I wanted to leave it because I'm just using strings not in the too high register. So let's see how this sounds. Oh, really beautiful, lush and warm. And now if we dive into the MIDI here, you see me like doing here expression and dynamics. And I think that's a huge part of achieving these kind of waves and pad-like kind of sounds. So here I programmed everything in with my mod wheel and the expression as well. So if I just play it to you quickly. And with this kind of amount of reverb, you also achieve quite a nice tail ends or kind of stop of your strings, because sometimes with the samples, it's very tricky to achieve like a natural sounding stop, kind of imitating when the player is stopping. So my next sound, I just literally copy my MIDI information onto these violas, longs consort. So they, in the super flautando, they play over the fingerboard, or in this case it's a cello, so they would be playing quite high up and quite softly. And the violas here, they just put the mute on. And the reason why I'm doing this is just to help defining the sound a little bit. So bring in a little bit of definition with a slightly harsher sound. Also, these violas are amazing. They literally sound really wide. So I'm creating kind of this bed for then my cello to sit right in the middle. Let's listen to those together. And then here, the next one, I'm copying the same MIDI information, but I'm putting those up 1 octave. And this is an amazing trick. I think I might have learned it from Christian, and I choose the Longs harmonics. And the reason, again, why I'm choosing here chamber strings, because that library is incredibly detailed and really gentle and beautiful. And I'm a big fan of the sound of this whole library. The harmonics just sound absolutely incredible, and I'm just letting them sit on top, just fairly quietly. Bringing in a little bit more here. And here my curves, yes, I'm copying the MIDI information, but sometimes this programming here, I change it slightly so it doesn't sound too copy-paste, or there's a little bit of shifting going on in terms of like volume and dynamics. And then I'm copying the same information, but back an octave down onto the chamber flautando, and I'm adding a little bit of close mic just for a bit of clarity and definition. And the flautando of the chamber strings is one of my favorite patches ever, so I'm kind of just mixing them in for beauty reasons, I guess, as well. And then this is kind of the bulk of my arrangement. And here on top, I'm adding some colors in the harmony. So here I'm using the Violins Super Flautando, very beautiful patch as well. And again, similar mic setting here, maybe a bit less reverb. And it's just something. And I'm doing the same trick here. I'm copying this onto the harmonics of the chamber strings, just to have two different timbres playing the same line. Amazing how these sounds sound so beautiful together. And then I'm creating this drone kind of thing, like this high drone with the violas, white trem waves, which are really cool. So they're kind of moving around a little bit, so you get the sense of something's happening and not just like a simple straight tone. A little bit more reverb here because I want to put it right in the back. And then I'm using another library, which I can't forget about, which is Albion Tundra, which is absolutely amazing. And it's kind of designed for the silkiness of the strings. And I'm using here the Gypsy harmonic trems, which I really love. They're also kind of moving and they're really delicate. And then here, Super Sul Tasto, also from Albion 5 Tundra. So let's listen to all three of them. And then together with the rest of the strings. And then for the basses, I'm using the normal longs. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want it to get too washed out on the bottom end. I want it to be quite tight and defined. And that's why I'm using the close mic as well. And you can hear it when it comes in, it gives this really beautiful warmth. And another trick is to put a sine wave an octave below the bass. but in this piece I just wanted to keep it purely orchestral. Just gonna mute the rest and just have the strings playing for you. So, and then just to demonstrate a little bit what else I'm using here to complete my piece, I will play it in the end for you to listen to. I'm using the solo strings cello legato here for this solo line. And so on. And then for this middle bit, I'm using the sul pont here. Quite a nice effect. The tremolos, the normal longs, the harmonics, and then some woodwinds here, the cor anglais for some counter melodies, also legato. And then some flutes to do the same thing. And then another little trick to kind of enhance the sounds of your strings is actually to put in some brass. Some really, really soft kind of horns work really well. So, and I'm loving this horn euphone mixture here on Albion 2, which sounds like this. It's a beautiful tone, or an octave below. And then the trombones, just kind of the root note or the fifth up from the root note to support the bass. Cool, let's just have a listen how these horns and trombones sound with the strings. It gives that extra layer of depth to your pads, basically. Cool. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tip and can use some of it in your own compositions. And I will just play the whole piece for you. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments box. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.